welcome to the Paytech Show. In today's episode of the Paytech Show, we're going to take a bit of a deep dive look into the innovation happening in the Nordics. Joining me today, I have the likes of Infuse, Indo and Rocker. First of all, I want to get their views on the financial ecosystem currently, especially in the Nordics. You obviously work with various clients across different regions, but do you think that there is a different approach to neobanks and even to UX from region to region?
Yeah, I think especially on the consumer need, you need to know what your customers need to be able to serve them. I think all the national players, they still have some kind of vision to move abroad at some point. But to be able to move abroad, you need to be grounded somewhere and you need to show you have the capabilities to serve customers. And then it's really smart to start off where you are an expert on the national needs. So really becoming a player to count on in your own nation. And then when you have proof of concept, then it's easier to move abroad. As you said, Mondo, UK, now US, but they are big in UK first before moving forward.
Absolutely. It's also, there seems to be, we were speaking to a UK, a very new this year Islamic bank called Risk. And it was an Islamic bank, and they were saying the next kind of region that we want to move into is Indonesia, because there's actually quite similar needs on the Islamic finance side. So it is all about that kind of cultural fit region to region.
Yeah.
How have you found some of your clients? How have you found their approach to this when actually kind of expanding abroad in terms of where they decide on? I'm thinking, for example, of like Rocker in Sweden, thinking, oh, maybe we should move to move into Denmark and Germany or wherever.
Yeah, so of course they are moving to regions where they feel confident and where they feel that the same concepts can be working. So starting off in the Nordics, it's quite natural to be moving down in Europe, slow but steady, because there are of course small changes in Germany compared to the Nordics, but there are similarities as well. But then maybe if you go further down, you go to Greece or Spain, the differences between the Nordics and Greece, they are bigger than if you go then from Germany to Greece. There are again smaller gaps to fill. So by filling the small gaps all the time, you will be able to take more and more countries and launch your services.
What was the Nordic banking industry like? What was the biggest issue that was facing consumers? Where were they being underserved?
Yeah, sure. I think Sweden is kind of similar. Was kind of similar back in 2017 to many other European markets. Dominated by a few players, incumbents, stuck in legacy IT culture, etc. Were like building products that they wanted to sell rather than focusing on services that people wanted to use. So I think we were in a similar position to quickly take a market share by using technology and building financial services that people love. I think Sweden might be a forerunner in terms of building infrastructure such as bank ID, transaction sharing with Swish. There are a couple of things that Sweden's really been a forefronter into, even in the legacy traditional banking environment. However, I think consumers feel equally unserved in Sweden to other European markets back in 2017 when we started.
What was the retail banking space in Iceland like at the time? What were people's needs and what was on the market that wasn't actually fulfilling these needs?
Well, that's a good question. We have basically had the same kind of banking system for, I would say, 30 years. So it's three large incumbent universal banks, pretty much all doing the same thing. I mean, you get the same kind of services and the rates and products for every one of them. They themselves sort of grew from mergers and acquisitions from the old savings bank system going back 50, 60 years. And we basically have a system in 2018, we had that in 2010 as well, of banks that are big by Icelandic standards, bogged down by IT legacy problems, probably overstaffed, and really focused on being reactive to what happens instead of being proactive in developing new things. So what we saw in the market was really an opportunity to introduce the solutions and the technology that is emerging in Europe and in the US into Iceland by offering better products, better services at a much lower cost, and sort of readjust the cost structure and then transferring the savings to our customers.
Absolutely. I mean, that seems like any market where there is an incumbent, where there is it needs a collective term, but I was referred to it as it's always been done that way kind of attitude.
And that's the way we see it. I mean, banking, my co-founder and I, Tryggvi and I, we've done banking for a long time, and we know that there is this inherent sort of attempt to try and make banking sound very complicated and say, well, this is a unique industry. It's not like any other industry. It is, by and large. I mean, there are a lot of rules to abide by, but the laws of the market still hold. I mean, there are incumbents. They get sort of complacent, and that creates space for new entrants into the market. And in the ideal situation, like the one we have here, is the incumbents are so complacent that they really honestly believe that nobody else can do this. So what we were able to do is just quietly plodding along and building our technology stack and researching the market and so on and so forth with little reaction from the competition. So it's like you say, I mean, it holds true for every industry. And that is the situation that we're seeing here. And that is also the situation that is, I think, from the countries that we've looked at, relevant to many other countries in Europe.
Exactly. That's what I think, in a nutshell, is what is so interesting about fintech today, is that there was a period a few years ago where every bank said, we want to be a tech company. And now they almost all seem to be saying, look, we just want to focus on serving our customers. There's people out there who focus on just AML, on just processing, on just core banking. They should be the ones that are doing that for us, not us. It's Hoko from Indo was actually saying it's almost, there's a slight arrogance on the banks to think that they can do everything in-house.
Yeah, like it was only 4 years back when we started off. We had the inch that the banks will need to start focusing on their core businesses as well, because the neobanks started to become, they weren't that big, but today the neobanks is just, they are pushing forward and they are focusing on what they are really good at. So for the legacy banks to keep up, they would also need to focus on where their core business is and be the best of that, and then scaling off everything that is not within your core business. And that's the same way we as a provider do as well. So we look at our core business, what it is, and how to be best at what we do. But we won't starting to put more and more half services on it, like we are semi-good at anything. If we are going to production with something new, we need to know that we know this and we are the best of it. And that is, I think, with all the business owners today, you need to be the best in what you do. Otherwise, you will have a hard time in the long run.
What is Infuse's position in this ever-changing digital payments and payment card landscape? How would you describe your position and role in the market?
I would say we are the enabler. We are the hub, we are the integrator, whatever word you want to call it. But we are the tech behind that doesn't allow ourselves to become legacy. So you can trust in us in being compliant, in being relevant, in being secure, so that you can focus on whatever great consumer or corporate ideas you have.
We're living in a world where you very much have the ability to almost go to the shop and buy a bank in a box and be there, set up, ready to go in its absolute core. How do you fit into this model? And to throw a buzzword, but a very relevant buzzword, how do you fit into this ecosystem where everyone is kind of connected together?
So when you talk about banking, you can actually mean a lot of things. And that I think also when, if you Google banking in a box or banking services, the variety of services that you will find is so huge. We can call ourselves a processor or card issuing in a box. So if anyone wants to enable digital payments or attaching to Visa, MasterCard, utilizing those payment trails, that is where we can be the enabler, because it's really easy. It's a huge thing to get this working on your own if you haven't done it before, but then utilizing someone that knows how this part of the ecosystem is working, and just relying on us as the provider, we will make sure that you succeed with whatever you want to achieve.
Let's talk tech. Now, you've said that your tech is, you're told it's relatively simple. And I know you're working with the likes of Infuse over in not Helsinki, or they've got an office in Helsinki and the Åland Islands. What's your overarching kind of approach to tech, especially in this world where you can almost get a bank in a box?
I think we joke around sometimes and say that we are extremely lazy. We do not want to build things. And we know from bitter experience that the problems that the banks have in Iceland is they are primarily rising from their sort of desire to build stuff themselves. So you have dozens and dozens and even hundreds of IT systems that are to a various degree outdated, but all interconnected. And it's extremely expensive to keep them all running. So we say, we're not going to do that. We are going to build as little as possible. So we're going to look at companies as to partner up with in providing specific solutions. So that means that we are always looking to partner up with somebody who is best in class. And our job is to make sure that the integrations work. So we are partnering up with Infuse, a terrific, amazing company from Helsinki, as our processor for our debit cards. We are issuing Visa debit cards. We are using Comply Advantage for our sanctions screening. We are using an Icelandic startup, somebody you might want to talk to later on, somewhere down the line, called Lucinity. They're doing transaction monitoring for our bank accounts. Amazing companies, and we will be in charge of connecting all that stuff to our offering. So instead of trying to build this stuff ourselves, which if we could do it would cost us way more than anybody else, and it would be arrogant of us to think that we could do it better than people who are actually specializing in building this stuff. So I think rather than viewing our partners or the solutions that we are using as vendors, we say these are partners. we are bringing this together, and that is how we can really rise up to our 6 rules, because we are doing this together. And I think from that standpoint, it's from that particular IT standpoint is we're using things as simple and as minimalistic as possible, and then we can focus all our magic into the creation of the app, because that is where the cool stuff happens, that is sort of customer facing. And we are doing some amazing stuff with the app, and that's going to be a real head turner when it comes out.
Absolutely, I think it's been interesting following some of the big American banks, who some are partnering with Google, some are partnering with Amazon, and then one has decided to do everything in-house. So I'm kind of curious to what's going to happen there with the data. But at the end of the day, with all the best will in the world, you'll be working and effectively competing on product with companies that all they do is focus on card issuance, all they do is focus on AML, all they do is focus on customer experience, and it's hard to diversify yourself that way.
Exactly, and I think it's going back to your previous question about the least powerful bank. I think a part of the problem with banks or bankers viewing themselves as all powerful, they say, we are so amazing that we can actually do as a side project something that has taken millions of dollars and hundreds of people and a decade of development, and we will do it as a side project in 6 months. That is not going to happen. That has never happened anywhere, and it's not going to happen now.
Thanks for watching. That is all that we have got time for. I hope you've been able to gather some nuggets of information off the collaborative approach exemplified in the Nordics. Join us next time. I'm me, your host, Ali Patterson, for the next episode of The Paytech Show.